Cool. All right. Well, we are going to do part 2 of our JWT authorization in Rails. So I'm just going to jump right in. Actually, before I jump right in, does anyone have any questions from last time, or if you did any more work or reading or exercises? Any questions from stuff that you got there? All right, let's back into it then. I'm going to share. Wait a minute. Can I get chat over here? Everyone's situated. There we go. Okay. Share. Get people over here. Controls. I wish Zoom would just do this automatically for you every time, but anyway, so wish in one hand. Cool. Actually, I'm gonna close. I have both of them open. Leave the front end up right now, and we're just going to look at our backend still. So I guess let's review quickly what we got here. So I'm just making a little to-do app, and the only thing I have so far is users. So we can I do? Yeah. Okay. Great. So I've got my migration for my users. We have a username, a password, digest, and an email. I made sure to add the bcrypt and JWT and all that stuff to our gems and config. Went through all that configuration stuff in there and added to our users controller, users model. There we are. Has secure password, which is that macro. It's a function that writes code for our class that just says when you get a password, decrypt it and throw it in the database under the password digest. So we can actually look at that. And we're validating all that usual stuff there. And the cool stuff comes in here. So a couple parts, right? We need to, or a bunch of parts, not just a couple. First off, to have a user to log into, we need to create a user. So we have a route to create user. I think that's the only route. Yeah, so we only can create users here because we're just living in userland. If we had administrator or whatever set up, we would probably have more routes for them that were authenticated for them, but we can worry about that in a little bit. So we're only creating users. User has create. We create a user with the parameters like usual. Is user valid? Then we create a token for it. We serialize the user data and the token and send it up. So if we, how do you spell that thing where you don't sleep? Insomnia. That's what I had last night. So. Cool. Oh, perfect. So even though my server's not running, we have the result from last time. We are posting a user. So we're creating a new user with a username, email, and password. And we're getting back the username and email and a token, that JWT. Where did we get that token from? We created a token with encode token. And Ruby doesn't let me do that. So in our application controller, which our user's controller inherits from, so we get all the goodies that come along with that, we made an encode token. Payload is just the object that we're encoding into that token. And my secret key is going to be a string that is not going to be my secret key because that's awful. But we'll make it be, literally anything else we want. So it's going to be that. Much harder to guess, and that will take our object and turn it into the token that we saw. Why JWT? Because we can actually, so notice that the subtle point, notice that is JWT encode and not JWT encrypt. That is specific language. because encoding generally means two ways. So we are encoding it with our secret key so that when we send it back, we can decode it. If we encrypted it, encryption is generally one way. Public key encryption is different, but generally when we mean that, when we say encryption, we don't expect it to be decoded. Encoding, we expect it to be decoded. So that's what we're going to do next. Why don't we just do that for passwords on our server instead of the crypt? Because if they have access to our database, they probably also have access to our secret key, which is going to make it way easier to decrypt everything immediately. Secret key can be anything, so it's pretty darn safe to send it over the wire. All right, so let's talk about decoding. Decoding is pretty easy. Guess what the guess what the JWT for that is. So we're going to let me talk through a little bit what we want, right? At what point are we going to hit the decoding? So I'm going to need to know whether a user is authorized to do a thing, right? That means that at least they're logged in, and as we go forward, they'll have certain permissions. Authentication is, are you who you say you are? Authorization is, what can you do? So we're going to go really simple. If you're logged in, you can do everything you can't do when you're not logged in. The one thing that you can do when you are not logged in is, well, two things. You can create a user and you can log in. Everything else we're going to require a login for. So how do we do that? Good question. I think what we're going to do is in our user's controller, we are going to say, no, not in our user controller, in our application controller up here. Sorry. In our application controller, we are going to say, so we need to tell it to authorize when we are doing the user control, right? So we need to say in our application controller, hey, make sure that you're authorized before you do anything. So before you take any action, authorize stuff. So let's go ahead and do that. Ruby gives us, or Rails gives us a macro for that. It is for action. So before it does before it executes any public methods, it's going to need to be authorized. Great. Cool. So we're going to need to write the that is a method. So before any action, it's going to run authorized. And right now, we're just going to say authorized, always going to return false. So like I was saying before, we want two things to be available to us before authorization, right? So we do need to update our users controller. So we need to skip that authorization before the action. Skip the thing, skip the before action. Skip before action. Rails gives us a thing for that. Skip before. And so in just our users controller, we're saying we're going to skip our authorized because we can have as many before actions as we want. Right now we're just doing authorized, but there's limitless possibilities. But we don't want to skip all of them because that's not going to be what we want. So what we do want to do is a only create. So here, when we add more actions, we're going to want them authorized. We can't have the create new user thing authorized because if you don't have a user, you can't create a user login to get authorized. So now this is going to let us authorize it. So let's see what this actually needs to look like. Cool. So I am going to work from the bottom up, I guess. Or from the interface in, I'm not sure. No, top down, I guess. Outside in. We're checking for if you're authorized, right? So we are going to want two cases here. Are they authorized or are they not? If they are, so if they're authorized. I spell it wrong because it's not what we're doing. If they're authorized, return true. Else we're going to throw a warning. An error. Great. So how do we know if they're authorized? Right now, they're authorized if they're logged in. So let's just change this to if they are logged in. Cool. And if they're logged in, we want authorized just to return true. That's easy enough. Otherwise, we want to yell at them a little bit. So we're going to send back JSON. We are going to send them a message. That message is going to be, please log in. Exclamation point. And we want to send a status. Cool. And that's what our thing that we're calling here. So before every action that happens, we're going to check if they're logged in. If they are, we can render true or return true. They're all good. Otherwise, that is gonna not work. That's gonna be false. Cool. So next up is making that logged in thing work. So again, in Ruby, often methods will have a question mark if it's true or false. So we're calling that logged in. And I'm gonna, so if they're logged in, we want to see if so to log them in, we are going to grab the JWT token. We are going to decode the token. We need to see if the user ID in that token matches a user in the database. Yeah, so I think that's good. So I'm going to make another function here to do that. Call it current user. A lot of these names are kind of just like template-y kind of names that we're going to use. You'll see in some of the template/boilerplate stuff. It's in the JWT, the single JWT lab in Learn, not Learn, in Canvas as well. So if these sound a little bit funny, that's because they are. Okay, so great. I'm going to jump ahead to the current user thing here. So to get the current user, I'm going to need to grab that token. And to grab the token, I'm going to need to look at the headers. Yeah. So I think I'm just going to grab the headers in another function because I'm going to need to do a couple things with them. So here we are again, def auth header. And here I'm just going to return, so I'm going to look at the request that we're getting in. And this is an object that we get from action controller. Request is the whole ass HTTP request we get in with the header section, the body, everything in it. The headers have the URL, the method, and in our case, it's going to have a bearer token that looks like authorization, looks like this. Header looks like authorization. So we're going to need to grab that header and get this token out of it somehow. So I'm going to grab the header first, headers. I'm going to grab the authorization. So this is just going to grab, so the headers, some of that middleware that we talked about last time, one of them grabs the headers from the big old string that is the HTTP request. Because an HTTP request is just a string, right? A big string of text. So it like splits out the head and the body, and then the headers are all separated by colons. So it's going to separate all the headers into key value pairs. Those key value pairs are going to be given to us in this headers object in the request object. Rails does that all for us automatically. And so I'm just getting the one of the key authorization. Cool. So we're going to say, first we want to see if it exists at all, right? So if it's there, we'll do some stuff. If it's not there, we probably want to send another. Do we want to? No, because that's just going to fail, right? So if it's not there, it's not going to return anything. So we can actually do a little trick here where we're just returning. So when we talk about this a little bit, we want logged in question mark to be true or false. Current user could be all sorts of stuff, including string, nil, whatever. We definitely want this to be true or false. So we are negating it twice, and that's just a Ruby idiom to force something to be literally true or false instead of something truthy or falsy. So it's just kind of like a little hygiene step there for us. So if auth header isn't there at all, it's going to return nothing, and then logged in is going to bang it to turn it into false. Authorized is going to say, nah, that's false. That's going to render our error message. So cool. That looks okay so far. So if the auth header is there, what do we want to do with it? We want to grab that token out of it. And right now, auth header looks like this. They're request headers authorization is a string that looks like that. We don't care about that bearer word, so we're going to need to grab that second part out. There's a few ways to do it. We could use a regular expression, which I'm a fan of, but the more Ruby-ish idiomatic way to do it is to split it out and just grab the first one. So I'm going to say our token is our auth header, and we're going to split that on space. So split is a method on strings. We give it a delimiter. It's going to return us an array of that string broken up by that delimiter. Right now, there's only 2 pieces if we're splitting on a string. So we want the second piece, and we can just say, give me index 1 of that array. So that's going to make token equal to the string here. It would be cool if this was an automatic thing that Ruby did for you, but it's something that we write every time. So maybe just write a macro to write that code for us. That would be the smart thing to do. Cool. So I want to take that token and I want to decode it now. So I'm just going to say, and I'm going to copy this part because there's a bunch of junk in it. JWT decode. Yeah, it doesn't give any help. Okay, so decode needs a few things. It's going to need to grab our actually, you know what? I think I should, yeah, let's do this first. If auth header. since we're decoding the token, I'm going to say this is called decoded token. And we're going to return what we get on that. Make another little function here called current user. All right, cool. Let's get that token out first, and then we'll send it to that and grab the user out just to make it a little bit easier here. So we're going to want to decode our token. Our token is going to be the same as up here. So I'm actually going to pull this into a secret equals a string, because again, that could be anything at all. So I'm going to need to decode it with the same secret. If you're interested in the details of how that encodes and decodes, that is all publicly available. But yeah, you can think of using it like taking your object, basically turn it into a JSON string, and then using the string, basically like doing some math using that string to change each piece of that into something different that is easily translatable back by reversing that operation. The details are much more complicated, but not too difficult to understand if you're like super into it. If you're not, you don't need to be. So there's a couple other things we need to add here, right? We need to, what's it going to be? We need to do, let me see. The JWT to go. A couple more things. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Let's look at that one. Verify. Yep, we want it to verify. And we need to give it the algorithm. That's right. Yeah. So it's going to be in the options. We're going to throw that in. So we do want it to verify. True. And ideally, this whole thing would be an object. So we didn't have to remember the order, but whatever. So verify just means, hey, make sure that this is a good token. And we're going to need to tell what algorithm it uses, right? Because that's not default. So algorithm, right? And that is, what is it? HS256, clearly. You're never going to know this unless you look it up, unless you see someone else use it first, unless you're like super into it. So this way is fine. So this is going to send us the decoded token, but we are verifying that token. So we need to not return it because it's going to return something, right? We need to verify it. So I'm going to use, in JavaScript, there's a try-catch clause. Basically, you can wrap it in a thing that says, hey, try to do this thing. If it doesn't, don't throw an error, catch it and do this other thing instead. Ruby has something similar. It's called rescue, and we're going to say begin. So we're going to begin this block here, try and do this stuff. If it doesn't work, we're going to do a rescue, and all it's going to say is return nothing. So instead of throwing an error, which it would do otherwise, and just stopping the server, we don't want a bad password to stop the server. So we're going to do that. Cool. So back down here, decoded token is either going to be the token that is decoded or nil. If it's nil, we're going to pass it down here. We're going to call that from here. It's going to get turned into false. That's going to be that. This is, again, a hygiene step, not entirely 100% necessary, but nice to have. It's a Ruby-ish. So how to use the decoded token to figure out if this is the right one. So first off, we need to make sure that we have it. If decoded token. If we don't have it, we're not going to do any of this at all. We'll grab the user ID. And so the decoded token is the same as the object we sent up before here. And actually going to have all the stuff from the user. So not just this stuff, but everything from the user. So including the ID, which is what we really want. And so we want to call it decode token. So it's going to return a list of all the stuff. So we want the first thing, even though it's the only thing. This is just the way the object is set up. So this is what we have to do every time. And we can grab the user ID out of that. Again, this is already kind of a pain in the butt. It would be an order of magnitude more of a pain in the butt if you had to go through and do it yourself. I actually kind of recommend futzing with it and doing it yourself, because that not only helps you understand, like, we're not just copy and pasting this stuff, we understand what it's doing underneath, but also this isn't the only thing that's going to react like this. So futzing with this kind of thing when you have time is good practice for when you come across other stuff like this that is going to be equally buttheaded. That said, if we have authorization headers, if the auth header has a token that we can decode with our secret password, and if that decoded token has a user ID in it, we can use that information now to just set the user. And we're going to do a find by ID. Oops, ID. Great. And if that returns, if that is successful, it's going to return the user. The user is going to get banged into true, and we're going to log in, and that's going to be true, and all our stuff is going to go. Why am I doing an @user there instead of a regular old user? Because remember, our other controllers are inheriting from application controller. So when it does the whole before action authorized, before it does any action aside from creating a user, it's going to go through all this rigmarole, get the token, decode it, get the current user out. And so since it's doing all that stuff, we may as well throw it in a class variable, which means that once we start doing stuff, we don't have to do a user find by or anything. User's already going to be stuffed in our @user. And so we can just grab that, because if we're there, it clearly logged in correctly. And if it logged in correctly, we clearly have the user ID, which means we have the user. So that's basically doing this every time. And once you set it up, never have to think about it again. But having it do this on every request automatically gets us the user that's making that request. I feel like that takes care of most, if not all of it. Yeah. That's a lot of tiny pieces, which is fine. That's a Ruby-ish kind of way to do it. I feel like I've done this before, and this feels like a good level of granularity. I always feel a little bit weird about that, because but I think it's not necessary, but it's nice. It's a nice little safety latch there. I feel like that's going to do most of it. Yeah. Let's take a look and see if it works. So to do this, we're going to need to add something in here. And so I'm going to start the server just to make sure nothing has exploded while I've done all this stuff. S. And if there are errors, we will know immediately, or almost immediately. Cool. No syntax errors, at least. Cool. So let's add something to see what we can do with this. I'm actually going to change what we had before, I think. Change my mind. Do I want to change that? I kind of do. Kind of do. Kind of do. Yeah, I'm going to change that. I'm just going to say get our, I'm just going to do the show, right? So if we get a user by ID, you know what? Actually, no. Oh, yeah, I will do that. I will do that. We can show off here. I'm going to add a route that's just get your profile. It's going to be, profile is going to be the resource. So instead of like user's profile, because we're not looking at a user, we're looking at the profile. But we are directing it to a method on users called profile, which feels all right. Allergies are so high today. Cool. So let's go ahead and add a profile method to users. And that's going to be, I'm just going to have it return some JSON for us. Yeah. And I'm doing that instead of the get users do the show method because we want to show off our authorization stuff, which means that you know, we can still put a get for our application. We can still put a get user to have them look at another user's profile, for example. But I want them to look at their own profile without having to specify the user ID, because when we did the login, we got their user here in at user. So let's hook up this user's profile method. So I'm going to do profile. Boom. And so since only create is getting skipped on the authorization step, profile is going to be automatically protected. So is everything else. You know, we can just render out a, hey, what's there? But I'm just going to render out user. I think that's a good idea. We'll see. That should be using our user serializer. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see if it does. I don't think it's, we'll find out. So let's make our requests and see what happens. And when the inevitable errors happen, we'll see where those errors are happening. Cool. And let's use Postman again. I'm going to create a new user. This is going to be major. Same to the password, none but business. Great. I'm going to send that. And if nothing broke, oh boy. Okay. Undefined local variable or method my secret. I disagree, but let's see. My secret, my secret, my secret. Oh, do I need to make it a, no, I don't think that's gonna do it. I'm just gonna choose it out and say, it's at my secret. This is bad, don't do this. No, I'm not gonna do it either. I'm just gonna say my secret is secret. So I'm just gonna put the string secret. Oh, I'm just gonna encode my secret, my secret. Again, this is not a good way to do this. This is not a good password. We'll show you how to do with environment variables coming up. Probably tomorrow when we do deploy, because that's when you're going to be doing that. Let's see if we can do that again. It's going to give me another error. Could not create user. So let's do M major. Hey, okay, cool. So 3M major. We've got our token here. Sweet. Cool. Now, so that has created the user for us. I'm going to show what it looks like when we log in. So we have the token back here. So if you have the flow, and this is a UX thing, if you have the flow of create a user, great, you created it, you're logged in. You have the token here, and you can send that along as you want. But I'm going to assume we're not doing that. You create a user, go away for a week, come back and log back in. I'm going to log in with our password, none your business. And again, our route to log in is just /login, and it's going to go to that create in auth in our controllers. In our controllers, auth create, and that's going to grab our. Where did I put it? I put it somewhere. It's in our controllers. It's not the user's controller. Where is it? Create. La la la. If create. Yeah. That doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel right. Yeah, it's going to the right place. What? Wait a minute. It's behaving right, but I don't think it should. I don't feel like that should work, and yet it's working. Let's see. Post to API users. Posting users. Oh, yeah, because I'm doing okay. I'm doing the right thing. I just misread. Monday morning. I am posting to users. That is my create there, creating user. Everything is great there. Cool, cool, cool. This is what I'm doing next. So I'm going to post to login. And doesn't care about the email. I am going to send the, okay, so that one is doing auth create. I don't think we put that one in yet, did we? Because that's going to give us an error that there's no route there. Yeah, we didn't make that route. Let's make that route. How about that? Cool. So yeah, maybe we should make a login. That would be a great idea. Oh boy. So what we need to do when they log in, we have most of the pieces here already, right? I'm going to make a new controller, and that's why there's no auth controller there. Just like we have our users controller here. Make a new controller under v1. Boom. Instead of users, it's going to be auth. And we do not want we do not want our before action here because again we want to be able to log in without being authorized, because that would be impossible. So I'm going to say same thing, create, and it's create both because we're doing a post and because semantically we're creating a new, not actual session, but session. We're creating a new authorization, a new login, which is why it feels okay to put that under create, under post. So like that. Cool. And if we look at our routes again, we're going to auth create, which is where we are, auth create. And cool. So what do we want to do here? Same kind of thing, right? We want to take our parameters that we're putting in. We want to see if it all works with the stuff we've got here. So how do we want to do that? We want to take in the user object. We want to grab that username, that's the word. We want to grab that username, grab that password. We want to check it against the digest password. So we want to digest the password that we're getting, or digest, check it against the one we have stored. And if it's good, go. If not, holler. So, more caffeine. So, we're going to get the params. Let's do a little private thing to get our params here first. And again, private is kind of a matter of style. Doesn't really matter if it's private or not. Just by idiom, we do it, just so other methods can't grab it, or other classes can't grab it. But since we're the only ones coding, yeah, who cares? But we do it anyway. So we're going to grab the params. We're going to define, say, login params. We're going to grab params. We're going to require the user object. Oops. User, and on that object, we're going to permit a username, and not a digest password, but a password, because we actually want the password field, just like the login, right? Like the login, we want to grab the actual text password, not the digested password. So I'm going to grab those. We don't want to authorize when we create. We don't want to log in if it's already logged in, right? So first, let's check if the user is there. No, let's do right. If trying to think the logic through how we want to do this. Yeah, let's not worry about that part. Let's just grab the user, because if they already logged in and they managed to go to the login page, let them have it. Why not? So we're going to use the params from grab the username from the params to look up the user by username, because you don't have any IDs or anything yet. Cool. So we're using the token to grab that. This needs to be, that's not right. Because we're looking up by username. Fantastic. Cool. Now we can say if we have a user, we also want to authenticate that user. And so we can actually go back to so we're going to need to do something on our user model to authenticate it. I'm going to put a placeholder here for now. So we're going to assume that there is a method called authenticate. We'll write it in just a moment. So if we have a user and that user is authenticated, I didn't write it last time, did I? I didn't. Good. And we're going to need to authenticate it with the password. So we're going to grab the password login params. Password, right? Okay, cool. So if we have both of those, we'll do our stuff. Actually, if we don't, else. Otherwise, we will throw back an error. So we'll render out some JSON. Invalid. Or we don't want to tell them which one it is, because if they know which one it is, they can guess easier. And we'll send back a unauthorized status. Cool. I think that'll do it. just kidding. All right, so if our user exists and the user has the right password, then we want to log them in. So we're going to say, so in this case, logging, and this is kind of the same logic that you would use with a session based with cookies up to this point here in this. The thing that we're going to do different is here, because right now we're just saying, does that user exist? And is that the right password that they sent? And now we're doing sort of like the, what's the name for that part? The, not transport, no company. Now we're sending the way that we're keeping the user alive, right? So they don't have to log in every time. If we were doing sessions and cookies, we would do that here, but we're not. We are going to create a token, and we're going to send that token up so that they can send that token along when we use it again, or when we want to send the next request. So we're going to make a token. We're going to encode token. And we are going to just send the user ID along because that's all we're looking for here. So we're just going to send the user ID along. We could send more information if we wanted to. Right now, let's just send the user ID. So we're going to send an object along with user ID. It's user ID. Cool. And now we send it back. And we'll send it along as a user. And we're going to see a lot. It's going to be the same thing as we did before, right? It's the same stuff here. Well, it's not going to be created. There it is. It's not going to be created. It's going to be accepted. JWT token, new user. Great. And we definitely need to explicitly say the user serialized here because we're in a different controller altogether and it has no idea what a user is or how to serialize it. So we explicitly say we're going to do it that way. All right. Almost there. Almost there. Cool. We need to write our authenticate method. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to put it in the we're going to put it in the user model, right? Yeah. So we put it in the user. Where are we? Hello. Where are we? There we are. User model. Come on. Let me change. Oh. Let's try this. Users. Nope. Fine. Control P is not working. Cool. So here in our, and we're doing it here because we just want to grab it off the user. Since the user knows what's in the database, because active record, we're just going to send it the password and tell it to do that. So user authenticate. Yeah. So we want to define authenticate. That takes a password we sent before, and we just want to return true if the decrypted password is correct. Otherwise, we're going to return false. Do we want to return true or do we want to return the user? Let's return the whole user. Why not? Yeah. So if password good, we're going to return the user. And in this case, the user is, because we are, this is a class, this is a instance method, self. Else we're going to return false. So self is truthy. So when we return that, when we return that, it's going to come out as true. So I think this is the last piece of the puzzle. If the password is good. So we have our plain text password, we have our digest the password, the encrypted one in the database. We know who we are, we can get at it. So here's what we need to do. We need to create, so we have self password digest, right? So that is the encrypted password. We need to digest the password. We need to digest the password. Is that right? It feels like it's wrong. If we need to, if encrypt, I don't feel like that's right. I'm going to type this out, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I think the other way is right. We'll see. We're going to say password new with the self digest. I don't think this is right. I don't think this is right. I don't think that's right, but we'll see. Then we'll return the user, otherwise that. So in auth controller, that's where we're using authenticate. Great. Get that. We'll find out. Oh boy. All right, that was a lot. That's a lot. Cool. Login at least exists now. I'm logging in with user. I'm a major, none of your business. Great. Where is this error? In auth controller 5. Does that mean user? Yeah. Yep. Good. I did mean user. That's why I typed it there. User. What am I doing wrong here? It says 8. Great. That's just a key. Didn't mean user. Aha. I did mean user there. There we go. Just don't lie. One more time. Hey, look at that. It looks like I logged in and it gave me a token. Cool. Let's take a look at what it did here. So I posted to the login route. I have a user object with a username and a password, and it doesn't put the password in the logs, so people can't look at the logs and see the passwords people are putting in. That's good. And we'll check that out. Cool. And that does the authorization. Sweet. And then returns our user object. Fantastic. All right, it did work. Login successful. So now the important part is we already know who we are, but we are going to grab this token. So now here's the juice. If we look at our routes, it's working again. We're going to go to /profile and see if we can get our profile, which is just going to return the username and password, I think. And this will not return anything. Profile, doing it. This should return us this error here. We should probably do a rescue there. I'm not going to. Please log in. Oh, right. We don't need to send an error there because it does that authorization for us. And we can see. So let's follow that path because I'm actually a little shocked that it worked the first time. Let's follow the path because you are going to have errors when you do this. and I want you to be able to look at them. And look at that, we're almost at the hour. Sorry, this is mostly just me talking. There's a lot of stuff to get in an hour. So routes, we are going to /profile. We're doing a get. It's going to take us to user's profile. User's controller says, hey, is there an action that we need to skip? We're not creating, so no. Is there in the application controller? Because users inherits from application controller. Before the action, we're going to see if it's authorized. Cool. Authorized is going to say, are we logged in? I don't know. Let's see. Get the current user. Okay, what's that? Do we have a decoded token? Oh, man, let's see. If auth header. Well, geez, do we have an auth header? Request headers authorization. Oh, I didn't send any headers. Look at that. So yeah, because of a want of a nail, the whole kingdom falls here. We don't have an authorization header, so we can't decode the token, so we can't get the current user, so we know we're not logged in, so we know it's not authorized, and since it's not authorized, it sends us the message, please log in. So we do that. We did that, in fact. We logged in and we got our token, which we now have. So all we need to do from our front end, when we do a fetch, we're going to send options, even with a get. And I like to wrap this in a either in a helper function or in React, do a what you call custom hook that takes care of sending requests and putting all the headers and stuff in to make it a little bit cleaner. But from this end, we will just send that header we're looking for. The header is authorization. And our value is that. Well, that's our token. If we just send that, it's going to fail. Why? Because it looks for something that looks like that. Since we're writing both the front and the back end, do we need that? Probably not. But if it's a standard for sending tokens, so if other people are trying to hit you with a token, they're probably going to do it this way. So it is best practice to do this way. I don't think there's any reason not to do it the other way if you're handling both the front and the back end. Am I lying? I don't feel like I am. That doesn't mean anything. Regardless, we're going to throw the bearer in there anyway. That's just the way we tend to do it. So we have an authorization header with a bearer token. We're going to send that and see if it works. And it does. Cool. So this is our profile information. And again, we did profile, came through users, before action authorized. Is it logged in? I don't know. Can we get a current user? Maybe. Do we have a decoded token? Let's find out. Is there an auth header? Yes. Auth headers, request headers authorization, which gives us this value here. We take that value, we split it out to get the actual token. Here's the juice. We decode it with the same secret we encoded it with. There's that. It's going to grab the ID out of that token, which is the user ID. It's going to do a user find by. If it finds it, great. It's going to return to here. Current user bang bang returns true. Logged in is true. We return true. Before action, true. Great. True, true, true. Goes to user's controller, hits the profile, renders out the JSON. Everyone's happy. We have a real application. So yeah, 2 hours-ish to make back end on Rails work, knowing a lot about it already and having a good template to look at. I would schedule at least a day for this, a person day. This went relatively smoothly. I don't expect the first dozen times you do it, it will go this smoothly. And there are still hiccups and errors. I was looking forward to doing some more debugging. I should have coded worse. But here we are. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff to digest, so to speak. But if you just, it feels like a lot. It is a lot. And I think most of the load is sort of conceptual. But the debugging stuff you are going to do for this is going to serve you in the same way for anything else you write in Rails. You're going to be hitting a route of some kind with some method, with some data. Those routes are always going to get hit here. You're going to see where the route goes. You're going to look for the controller it goes to. You're going to look for the method. You know, in the case of this auth one, or, you know, in the case of authorization, we're going to be doing a before action that, you know, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's 6 methods, 5 methods, but they're simple methods, and you can literally just like grab the thread and pull it. Is it authorized, logged in, current user, decoded token, auth header, bam. It's all except for, you know, except for 1 or 2 lines here that you can just kind of like put a little bit of faith in, and if not, you can dig into it. But you can find the end of this piece of thread here and just pull it. The rest is just plain old Ruby, pretty much. I'm not going to say it's simple, because it's not, but it is straightforward once you get used to looking at it, I think. And so this is going to apply for any kind of stuff you write for Ruby and Rails. You're going to have a route. It's going to kick off a controller. There might be some extra stuff attached to it. You might have to make sure your model is hooked up right. You know, add some stuff to your model, you know, validation, and blah, 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 all that. But at the end of the day, this basic stuff is, again, not simple, but straightforward. And it's just a matter of practice, I think. I still have to look up stuff all the time because I don't do it regularly. So looking stuff up is part of the job. Yeah, and if you don't get it immediately, you know, if you got it immediately, you wouldn't have to be here. So yeah, give it a shot. And again, the session stuff is not entirely dissimilar to this. The main part is going to be, you're still going to be looking at the encrypted stuff. The main stuff is, instead of getting a token and sending it back, and then sending a token over and decoding like that, you're going to be getting a session cookie and grabbing the session cookie instead and putting stuff in your session object. All the rest of the moving parts are relatively the same. It's a little bit less typing with sessions and stuff, but you lose a lot of flexibility. And this is how most apps are written in the real world, I think. Yeah, and that's a bit over an hour. Whew. Unshare this. Cool. Thanks for sticking in there through a whole lot of talking and not a lot of interaction. And a lot of dicking around. This will definitely be better as I watch at 1.5 speed later on. But that's the basis of how you do it. I'll post the video in the usual places. The code will be up as well. I think if we want to do one more on this, we can look at exactly how to hook it up from the front end. But you're basically just hitting those routes and sending a bearer token along in your headers. But if people are interested in that, I'm super happy to do so and show how that all works. Maybe we can do it tomorrow after deploy, so I can show you all the other goody bits and pieces with the environment variables, and see how it works in the real world. Yeah, that's the thing. Cool. So much stuff. Any questions before we head out?
That was awesome. Thanks, Mark.
So much stuff. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I have a bug somewhere I have to track down, but I'll find it, hopefully.
Yeah. And so when I post the video, I'll post the there's the learn or the Canvas lesson. It's also on GitHub. I'll post the GitHub thing so you have it forever. And I'll post my code, and I'll be available for questions anytime at all. Yeah, just me talking at you is not the best way to learn. So get your hands on it, play with it. You will have bugs, fix those bugs, and holler at me if you need help with them. Last call for questions. Christina, did you have something?
Oh, no, sorry.
No worries. Cool. Thank you for sticking in there. It's so much stuff. You all the troopers. I'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.